All set.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, in that case, welcome everybody. I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Tiverton Town Council, Tuesday, June 16th at 2020.
Oh,
And if we could, oh, there we go. We have a very beautiful flag bearer this evening. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And she just ran off with my flag, waving it around.
There you go. And my dogs have decided they now need to play. So the joy of Zoom meetings. Okay, Madam Clerk, would you like to call the roll, please?
Councillor Hilton,
Present.
Councillor Driggs,
Present.
Councillor Perry,
Present.
Councillor Edwards,
Present.
Councillor Clark,
Present.
Councillor Cook,
Present.
Councillor Di Maderas is absent.
So we have only one agenda item tonight, which is discussion and possible vote to approve a proposed resolution to the General Assembly in support of House Bill H8015, the aid to town and other municipalities in their efforts to pass local budgets and tax levies in accordance with their home rule charters. So I think we've discussed this before, that state law allows us, since we don't have a budget right now because we don't know what we'll be getting in state aid, we can roll forward under the law our existing budget. What we can't do is roll forward the tax levy. In other words, we don't have the ability to collect any property taxes. And this bill would allow us to do that. It would allow us to tax for the first, our plan would be to quarter of fiscal year 2021. So as of July 1st, to send out a tax bill with the current property tax rate on it, assuming that this is passed. It has made it through the House Finance Committee. I believe Chris said today the Senate committee approved it as well.
Right.
And it's headed to the full General Assembly for a vote. But we have been asked by the League of Cities and Towns, which is helping push this legislation through, that every municipality in support of this provide a resolution letting the General Assembly know that we are not only in favor of this bill, but we need this bill. So are there any questions? Nancy?
I have a couple of questions, Patricia. The first is, and I'm sorry, I was reading something when maybe you just said it, but the purpose of this resolution, if none of the cities and towns did this, would that affect the passage of this bill? That's my, do you know what I'm saying? Is this like, if nobody sent in a resolution of support, I don't know. I mean, keep in mind that there have been a lot of conversations through the league about this and with various members of the General Assembly. So I know that there's already been a lot of discussion that's gone back and forth. As a matter of fact, the league and including with, our own solicitor, Mike Marcello's help, crafted this legislation on behalf of the municipalities that need it. But, a lot of work went into this and a lot of effort, and they'd really like the municipalities, to put in writing their support for this. okay. So then and I don't know if this is the time to mention it. My second question is, and I don't know if anyone else had the problem, but I don't know if I got the full House bill. It doesn't seem to, I definitely was missing a couple of lines when it was sent, and I went back over whether it was just the printout, but
It's just the printout.
well, there's something that doesn't track, like it goes, and so I'm just not sure if I'm missing something. where it starts, where it starts the amendment part to the Rhode Island General Law. So after the first paragraph, it goes to parentheses 1, and then it has small 1 and small 2 in parentheses.
Yeah, I think it looks like it was scanned double-sided, or it was a double-sided piece, but it was scanned on single-sided only.
But then it went to parentheses 2, and then it goes to parentheses small c, which I don't know what that refers to. It's something doesn't track here, so I don't know if
Yeah,
I.
where's B? Where's A?
Yeah, if you go on
Travis-
Ryland, you can pull
Travis,
it up.
hang on a second. Travis, do you have a full printed copy of this? It looks like in the scanning that not everybody got every line. Do you have
It's easier to look on the General Assembly's website. I'm looking at the.
Yeah.
I tried to find it there and I couldn't find it.
So-
But I was on my cell phone in the car, so it was not the easiest search.
Okay.
Not driving though, right?
No, my husband was driving.
Okay, let's stay focused here.
Sorry.
So either I can direct you to it, or I can tell you that C is part 3 of the total picture here, right? So if you look at the first paragraph, there's A, which is black letter law already passed, right? And then you'll see B, which is the start of the new potential language, right?
I
And
don't
then
have B. I don't have B.
Whenever a state and local emergency, do you have that line 13 on page 1?
No, I think in our, I mean,
No.
I've read it online, but I think in our scanned copy that it just wasn't, it just wasn't the whole, it's, how do I explain it? If you look at the bottom of ours, it sort of cuts off.
I see.
Yeah.
And then
So if
there's
you
no-
could read, I'll tell you what, Travis, if you have it, after line 12
Yep.
on the first page, could
Okay.
you read out loud what is after line 12 on the first page until you get to parentheses 1?
Yeah, absolutely. We ready?
Yep.
Okay, subpart B. Whenever a state and local emergency is declared pursuant to sections 30-15-9 and 30-15-12B that prevents a city, town, or fire district from approving an annual appropriation measure and tax levy to fund such appropriation in accordance with their city, town, or fire district charter, the city, town, or fire district, notwithstanding any city, town, or fire district charter provision to the contrary, may adopt an annual appropriation and tax levy or take any other action normally required at a financial town meeting or financial town referendum by the governing body of the city or town through passage of a resolution or ordinance in the following manner. And then you get to your 2 options, big 1 and big 2.
So that's when you get to 1.
Okay, then you have 1, and then you have 2 in parentheses, and then line 14 after the 2 has a parentheses C, and I don't know what that refers to.
Right. So C is just another section of this bill, right? So we have A, right, on page 1. A is,
Oh, I'm sorry, that, correct. And so it was B that I was missing.
and then B I just read.
All right, got
It's
you.
like a whole other.
For not Travis, not to cut you off, but for everybody on the Zoom, I just sent the link to the actual House bill on the chat.
Thank you, John. All right, I get it now. So there wasn't a B, and that's what you just read. Got
Right.
it.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
John, you had a question?
No, I was going to, in honor of Mr. Marcello's not being here, I was going to make a motion to approve the resolution in support of House 8015 and for aid to town and other municipalities in their efforts to pass local budgets and tax levies in accordance with their home rule charters while maintaining adequate cash flow to ensure the financial stability of the municipal government. So we can move this discussion along.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, but I wanted to ask something myself.
Hang on one second. Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay. All right. Donna, you wanted to ask a question? Go ahead.
Right. I'm kind of concerned about expend funds during a declared emergency. It's saying any declared emergency. which could be anything at any time. I didn't expect it to be done this way, where all of a sudden, instead of like we had this pandemic thing, but now it could be for anything.
So,
I-
sorry.
I-
go
Not
Travis-
only that, it's retroactive to March 9th, which makes me think, why would you have to make it retroactive? It looks like something was done incorrectly or wrong, or why would it need to be retroactive?
All right, so Travis, maybe you can answer that. My understanding about this is that it's a declared state of emergency pursuant to Rhode Island law. In other words, the beginning part of B describes what qualifies
don't
as a
have.
state of emergency. So maybe Travis could answer that.
Yeah, there's actually two qualifiers here, Donna. For one, it can't just be a local emergency, right? We have to have a state and local emergency. Two have to be in play. And also, it's not just any emergency, it's an emergency that prevents a city or town from approving their annual appropriations. So if we're in an emergency situation where we can't get the appropriation measures and the tax levies have a referendum, right, then this particular law would allow the council to use these particular options in this bill.
What's with the retroactive though from March
So
9th?
March
Does that
9th
mean everything was illegal or something? So it needs to be like cover your butt or something here?
No, so March 9 was when the declaration of emergency was the emergency was declared by the governor. A lot of cities and towns have acted in that fashion since the declaration, like we have. And so having the retroactive language in there to March 9 is just for clarity for all cities and towns who have acted already, and to really codify it.
Okay, that's a problem for me, because I thought a lot of it was illegal. I thought it was only good for 30 days, and now you've got a retroactive thing in here. I didn't agree with a lot of it.
What was only good for 30 days, Donna?
30 days was as far as the emergency should have been, and yet it continued and continued. We're still going through this. I don't know, it's not even the Constitution that way, and I have a real problem with the retroactive part. That's what's really bothering me, because I don't agree with what happened at all. I don't agree that I just don't agree. I was blocked from doing my job and everything else. I just don't agree with it.
Donna,
I don't have a problem with.
I'm sorry, the
levies, but-
council, that's fine, but the council.
All right, go ahead.
I mean, the council took a vote.
Yeah, do you even need our vote for this? Because you didn't need our vote for the other stuff. I mean.
Okay,
Do you
Donna,
even
you're
need it?
starting, now you're starting, I'm sorry, but you're starting to be out of order. That was uncalled for. John, go ahead.
Just to clarify, I think what's getting lost in the weeds, we're not debating whether or not it would be retroactive for us. This is retroactive back to the date the governor declared the state of emergency. And I think, if I'm interpreting correctly, the reason why the legislation was written this way is so that it would go back to the effective date of the governor's state of emergency. Thus, we'd be able to continue while the state of emergency continues. I don't know, if I'm thinking about it linearly, like, it makes sense that we would want to match up the legislation with the date that the state of emergency was established at the state level, just so everything's clean and crisp. You know, we're going back in time trying to fix something that was broken. So why not go back to the beginning and fix it from the start? That's just my only thought. I mean, I don't want to get derailed into whether or not our state of emergency should have continued and that sort of thing. But, you know, I think, at least from my opinion, I think it's worthwhile for us to support this legislation. You know, the state's doing everything they can to help fix the problem that's created by state law so that we can continue to operate. So, you know, I think it would be worthwhile for us to move forward with this. But I'll yield back the rest of.
I would just to John's point, the other thing is the state declared a state of emergency on that date. the municipalities declared state of emergencies, which we were all asked to do varied. They're all different dates. It took some communities did it immediately. It took other communities a week or two. So every community has a different date for the start of their municipal state of emergency, so to speak. Whereas the one thing that's consistent for everybody is the governor's date. Nancy, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just had, maybe partly for Travis and partly for the council. Under our charter, as I understand it, how do I phrase this? I think the real big issue we're having, our charter would have allowed us with no resolution to continue. If we didn't have a new budget by the time of the fiscal year, we could continue our appropriations under our budget, clearly. As I understand it, without any resolution, the issue is this tax levy issue, and the fact that, as you just stated earlier in the meeting, Patricia, we don't, and to date, we don't know what the revenues are going to be. So everybody was saying, how can you do a budget when you don't know what the revenues are? And if you don't know what the revenues are, how do you figure out what a tax levy is? So it seems to me that that's the real crux of why, from the read you're taking of all this, that we need this resolution and to support this House legislation. So my problem with the resolution as it's written, and I just want to throw it out for consideration, is that there are a lot of whereases in here that I don't really think I think it sort of dilutes the real reason why we need this, and I'm not sure they're entirely accurate. And if you could just give me 2 seconds, I'd like to go. The first one is the third whereas, where the executive orders curtailed the ability of local governments. First of all, I think we're just talking about Tiverton. So I would just leave it with has curtailed the ability of Tiverton to conduct in-person public hearings. And there's nowhere in my understanding of the definition of public hearings that it requires an in-person one. And then the next one is, well, I guess it's just stating a fact that these 17 municipalities use an FTR and FTM. But then the third one does clarify it, that the Tiverton Home Rule Charter mandates the approval of a budget by the voters of the town after a public hearing. That's just a statement of fact. I'm not sure we need that in there. And then the next one, I'm not sure is true. Whereas continued restrictions on public gatherings remain, which has caused the town to continue the date. I don't think we're continuing it because we can't have a public hearing. It's because we don't have the revenues. We could do public hearings right now with no action by the General Assembly. We could have Zoom public hearings. Our charter doesn't mandate they be in public. So that to me is unnecessary. And the next one is just, again, a state law allows us to continue an appropriation, but does not allow for the continuation of a tax levy. And I know you put that read on it, so I'll take that. So I just think we should be careful that we stick to the resolution, what the real issue is, which is that actually the real crux of it is the last whereas. The state of Rhode Island is not expected to pass a state budget until 2021 or July, August 20, which could have an effect. And until we have the revenues, we need this. I don't know if I'm making myself clear. We're putting a lot of stuff in this resolution that, first of all, I don't think is true, that we're restricted from having a public hearing, a Zoom public hearing. I think we could have. But the real issue is that the General Assembly has, and the state has not given us revenues.
John?
So, question for the administrator, since you've obviously been in discussions with the league, and since Attorney Marcello is not present, or maybe Travis, maybe you know this information as our assistant solicitor. Does this resolution look like what every other of the 16 other municipalities has put forward? And I'll ask a follow-up question after that's answered.
From my opinion, it's pretty close. I mean, each town is referencing their own charter issues, but it's fairly close to what others are putting out there.
So my follow-up question, I guess, is why are we splitting hairs over the resolution? It's a positive thing. Why would we not just support this and move on?
There's some misstatements in there. I don't think our particular town charter does not require an in-person public hearing. And therefore, we could have had a Zoom public hearing. So we have not been prevented to have the public hearing part.
You can't.
Could I answer that one?
Yeah.
So, one of the things that is a little bit of an issue, yes, the General Assembly, by the way, a public hearing per the law in Rhode Island, according to the Attorney General's office, is normally a public hearing where the public appears in person. There is, except for this exception that's been made during this COVID-19 crisis, where the Attorney General is allowing us to have public hearing via electronic format. Normally, that is not allowed. You
Patricia,
can't.
do you have or could you give me a site for that? Because I was not aware of that. And if that's true, then change.
Yeah. Like Madam, sorry, Council President, I just got here. I'm a little late. The site is the open meetings law. Public hearings are, has to allow participation of public. The budget committee and requires a public hearing, and that public hearing has to be posted and advertised and allow the public to attend. And the only thing that the executive order of the governor did on the open meetings allow people to participate in a public hearing like this one by remotely without not having people here. So.
Or are you saying you can have remote
Public
ones?
hearings require public participation, live public participation. No, you could not have remote ones, correct. If we, for instance, we could never, the reason why we're having these Zoom meetings is because we are specifically exempted from the open meeting law now, right? So that allows us for every council member to participate in a meeting electronically. The open meeting specifically does not permit electronic participation by elected members of a body and under any circumstances except for this emergency order that was placed by the governor. So that's why we're doing what we're doing now. Normally we'd have to meet.
Right.
It's
So
possible to add a clarifying sentence just to say under the Open Meetings Act or something. I don't know. It just.
I'm not sure. I mean, resolutions like this, normally you'll list a number of reasons why you're in support of the resolution.
Right.
Some of them are more important to you than others,
Right.
but that's sort of the normal thing. I do have to agree with John a little bit. I'm not sure why we're trying to split hairs over a piece of paper that essentially says, we support the passage of this bill. It will be beneficial for us. It will address a number of problems that we are facing right now. The main one, you're right, that the most important one, which is the one that's been saved, sort of for last, is that we don't have any revenue estimates from the state. Nevertheless, the other things are, problematic. It just gives us a chance to let the General Assembly know that it's kind of more than one thing. Some of the problems are littler than others, but, we're supporting the passage of this bill.
Could I just add then maybe the whereas the state of Rhode Island General Assembly is not expected to, which could have an effect? I would say which has an effect.
I guess if someone wants to make a motion for that, I will say that I think it's fine the way it is. John?
So.
I mean, we're not passing an ordinance here. We're just passing a letter of support, essentially.
I know, but I want to never mind. Sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
No problem. I know we haven't heard from Councilor Clark or Councilor Perry yet, but and I'd love to give them the opportunity to speak, but I feel like I'm ready to call the question at this point.
Well, let's be fair. If they have comments, they should.
Which is why I floated it out there.
I will say, and I'm sorry, I'm going to get this being late. This is just a resolution in support of the legislation. The legislation was designed to help communities that have financial town meetings, which require an in-person meeting, as well as financial town referendums like Tiverton. It's very clear that the section B1 is the most helpful to Tiverton because that allows us to carry the appropriation and the levy from the prior year under the theory that it's already been approved by the voters, and it will help us with a cash flow temporary measure to get us until such time as we can actually conduct a full FT.
Yeah, and Mike, I'm sorry, you missed the beginning. but-
And this also allows go ahead. Sorry, what did you say?
Your Travis read to us the copy we got, and John has sent me the site now, but it did not include B, so it was sort of confusing to read this because we couldn't figure out what was tracking from where.
Oh, I'm sorry. B1 was in the actual legislation itself, but yes, B1.
Yeah,
So that's what
no,
B1.
well, Travis read the B to us, so that makes sense to me now.
Yeah.
And,
So that's basically what that's the most beneficial to Tiverton because it allows us to just carry over the last year's levy under the theory of Councilwoman Driggs that levy and that budget's already been approved by the voters. We're just carrying it over basically another quarter. So
I understand that. Yeah. Okay.
I have two questions for our solicitors, but before I ask them, Joe or Steve, do you want to weigh in here?
I don't have any,
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, no, I read this through when I first received it. I did realize that there was something amiss with the copy of it, which was explained to us now with section B in parentheses there, small b. And I do not have any issues with the way it is worded. So I'm okay with it.
I have one more question.
Hang on a second, Nancy. Joe was next. Joe?
Oh.
yeah, I reviewed it too, and I didn't have any issues with it, especially now that it's been explained fully. I'm good.
Okay.
Mike, I don't know, the explanation that's attached that's just that one paragraph where it says an act relating to towns and cities. All it says is to expend funds during any declared state or
I'm sorry,
local.
are you breaking up? Yeah.
Okay,
So-
all it mentions is in the absence of an annual financial town meeting. Should it also state in there a financial town referendum?
So the explanation, I will tell you that of those bills are done by staff people at the General Assembly, and they're always notoriously wrong.
Okay.
So the explanation doesn't really give you the full flavor of the bill. You got to look at the bill itself, and
Okay.
it looks like you guys went through it. So the explanation has no effect on law, but
All right.
it affects both FTRs and FTMs.
All right, well, I would like to make a motion to, if we could change
I
the
have a motion.
is not expected to pass a fiscal budget till July or August, which instead of could have an effect on town budgets, I would put which will have an effect or has an effect, not could. It's clear it does.
What number is that, Nancy? Which one am I
Last
looking at?
whereas.
So Counselor Driggs has made a motion to change language in the resolution. Is there a second?
I already have a motion for the resolution. Is that an amendment?
Yes, there's a motion to amend the last
Motion to amend.
Okay.
whereas, just to change it from could have to has.
So we need to vote on the amendment first.
First, correct. If
Okay,
it
is
has a
there a
second.
Does the amendment need a second?
Yes.
Is there a second to the amendment?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we're voting, Joe, go, you were gonna say,
Yeah, I
something?
would just like the solicitor's input on that amendment, if he, how he feels about that.
So you got two here tonight, but Travis was here, but it's not really a substantive change. It is more accurate. It will have an effect. The delay of the budget would have an effect on our on the revenues, and that's why that's the whole purpose of this statute to begin with. So again, I don't have any objection to it. Again, the general tenor of the resolution is that Tiverton elected body supports the entire legislation as proposed. And again, we're one of 17 communities that would be benefit by this passage of this statute.
I just want it to be accurate. I feel more comfortable that it has, which hasn't. So
Okay.
it will have.
So there's a motion and a second on the amendment. So we'll take a vote. Counselor Driggs,
Yes,
Counselor Edwards,
No.
Counselor Perry,
I'll abstain.
Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
all right, I'll go along with it. So,
thank you.
Okay, so now you just have to pass the resolution as amended.
all right. So is there a motion to pass the resolution as amended?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to pass the resolution as amended.
Okay.
I'll second it.
A second by Donna Cook. I do have one question for the solicitors, either one of them. So this resolution is in support of H 8015, which is the House bill. Do we need to, I mean, does it matter? Do we have to
No.
have the Senate version too? I mean, they know what it is.
They know no. I mean,
Okay.
it would be nice if you could add the Senate bill number. I don't know exactly what the Senate bill went in late, but it's identical to this bill. So it's good. It's good enough.
Okay. So in that case, there is a motion and a second. So
Madam President, if you just wanted to be sure, you could put H whatever the bill is and its Senate companion if you want to make that amendment. So and it's you could just call it and its Senate companion. There is an identical bill in the Senate that got introduced, I think, yesterday. So if you want to just be clear about it.
So do we need a vote to amend?
Yeah,
Yes,
you should.
Mike,
No,
yes.
I'm putting it along with the motion, Mike.
Okay, you could do that.
Pass
you
the
Okay.
resolution as amended and the Senate.
Companion.
Okay, perfect.
Beautiful.
So-
And if the council would give the authority for the council president or the legal department to add in the Senate bill number, that will be fine. We can get that done first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay. So, so why don't we take that because we have another vote after this. So I'm going to take a roll call vote. Counselor Driggs,
Yes,
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes,
Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Which brings us then a vote to authorize the council president to sign the resolution, and I'd like to actually amend that to sign the resolution and include the companion Senate bill in the heading.
Madam President, I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Donna seconds it. Counselor Driggs,
yes, to sign the resolution as amended, yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
yes,
Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. But before we go, I would like to thank a few people. I would like to thank the League of Cities and Towns, which has done a tremendous amount of work, including our own solicitor, Mike Marcello, who worked with a couple of the other solicitors and the other communities in the league to help draft this legislation. So we owe them a big thank you. This is, in a time when things are pretty crazy at the General Assembly, it, was a big push. So that was much appreciated. I'd also like to thank our local delegation, including Rep. Jay Edwards, who's actually the sponsor of this bill, and our other members of our local delegation who are supporting it, knowing that, Tiverton really needs this in order for us to maintain our financial stability. So a thank you to everybody who's helped with that.
Madam President, just to add to that, it's Dennis Canario and Jim Seveny and Wally Felag, who are the rest of our delegation.
Thank you, John. So.
And Lou
if-
Palmer.
Oh, and Luca Palma, well, he's Little Compton. I don't think he touches Tiverton.
No. Lou De Palma is not just Little Compton. Lou De Palma is the senator from my district, so.
Okay.
So anyways, thank you to everybody who's.
And Lou.
And Lou. Thank you to everybody who's worked on this. And if there's nothing else, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so we're gonna do this by hands and voices. All in favor, aye, raise your
Aye.
hand, say aye.
Aye.
on your phone.
Yeah, yeah.